Note that our patience and that of the international community is running out. It's running out on waiting for the Venezuelan electoral authorities to come clean and release the full detailed data on this election so that everyone can see the results.
The White House has also been clear that it does not trust the results, despite, well, the people's choice. Essentially, Washington likes to cherry-pick who should govern a country. Preferably, it should be its favorites. In the case of Venezuela, that would be the opposition leaders, Maria Corina Machado and Edmundo Gonzalez. What's interesting is that the president of the Venezuelan National Assembly has called on the prosecutor's office to put both of them in prison for attempting to feed into a civil war in the country. It's clear as day. The U.S. simply does not like a foreign government that goes against their will. Not only are they now denying the polls results in Venezuela, but they've also been very vocal about their support to the opposition.
Multiple exit polls and quick counts showed the opposition winning by more than 30%. Edmundo Gonzalez won with the largest landslide in Venezuelan history. This landslide win comes despite the regime's efforts that barred the vast majority of the 8 million Venezuelan exiles from voting. The real electoral numbers were so bad that the regime simply stopped counting votes and made up numbers. We need to change course. It starts by recognizing President-elect Edmundo Gonzalez.
But wasn't Venezuela's collapse due to the U.S. itself, who imposed crippling sanctions on the country? Sanctions deliberately put to crash the economy. On top of that, they've also admitted their plans to topple the government.
First, we thought that getting Guaido to declare himself president would be enough to topple the regime. Then we thought putting aid on the border would be enough. Then we tried to sort of construct a kind of coup in April of last year, and it blew up in our face when all the generals that were supposed to break with Maduro decided to stick with him in the end.
Now, the U.S. is painting itself as a supporter of the voice of the people, talking about how the recent Venezuelan elections are illegitimate, how the voices of Venezuelans are being silenced. But even if one tries to believe Washington's cries for democracy, let's remember their stance on the protests that happened in Peru. When Dina Boluarte came to power, the U.S. welcomed her with open arms. Washington strongly supported the right-wing coup against Peru's elected left-wing President Castillo. The State Department was even excited to work with the unelected coup leader, Boluarte. And let's remember, when an angry nationwide protest erupted about her rule, no words from the U.S. about democracy or the people's voices, just direct and continuous support to the right-wing coup leader.
The United States looks forward to working closely with President Boluarte on shared goals and values related to democracy, human rights, security, anti-corruption, and economic prosperity. Secretary Blinken stressed the need for all Peruvian actors to engage in constructive dialogue to ease political divisions and focus on reconciliation.
And just recently, the prosecutor's office in Peru has decided to dismiss a genocide case against Boluarte. That's a case that opened after the anti-government riots erupted 2 years ago, which left scores of protesters dead and injured. But while the United States tries to lecture others on democracy, it might want to take a look at its own internal affairs, remembering the Capitol riots. Seems like ever since then, the great American democracy has been going downhill. Or maybe how for Washington, it is acceptable to hold a political figure accountable in court. But if another country sees it fit to do the same to protect its own laws and order, it's a breach of democratic values.
I think everybody who follows international politics, we all know that the culprit that is responsible for undermining democratic processes, violating the sovereignty of nations around the world is, in fact, the United States of America. They have perfected the process of coups and interference politically in the internal affairs of nations across the planet. So that is quite obvious for anyone who is honest and who can see.